to another episode of the Puncher's Chance podcast. I'm your host, John Lodge, joined as always by my co-host, Jordan Grenke, coming to you from the Sports Lodge, and Jordan's coming to you from Castle Grenke. And we have a big fight night coming up on the horizon. We have a Canadian on the card that we're amped up to talk about. But man, there is a lot of storylines coming out of this card. But before we get into it all, NFL Week 1 went down, and I gotta say, I am so happy with how it turned out for the New England Patriots. And I gotta say, man, I told you so. I told you so before the game started, and I can't believe how it happened in such horrible fashion. But the Detroit Lions do it again in the fourth quarter. They just cough it away. So yeah, tell me exactly what happened there with your Detroit Lions.
You know what? I can't explain it. To be honest, I've always said that as much as I love Matt Patricia, who is the head coach of the Detroit Lions, I know that he's very, very analytical. I know that he spends a lot of time on numbers and tries to fix his mistakes and all that stuff. I'm worried that he wasn't letting the team play and he was trying to overcorrect things. That's my excuse. Being a fairly newer Lions fan has really got on the bandwagon like 5, 6, 7 years ago. But like it's been heartbreak ever since I signed up. I feel like I signed up for the wrong team, but I refuse to jump ship. They looked great in the first 2 quarters. I don't recall a team giving up that many points that wasn't the Atlanta Falcons in a half, let alone an entire quarter of football. It was really hard to watch. I got so mad I went for a big bike ride. So I'll thank the Detroit Lions for partially if I lost any weight this week. So, but it was hard to watch, man. And I love the people on the team. I thought Adrian Peterson looked fantastic for a guy that's supposed to be over the hill. Matt Stafford was more consistent than he normally is. Variety of receivers. I don't know. I was happy with what I saw. And then it was, they call it SOL. If you live near Detroit, it's called Same Old Lions. Blowing it in the second half happens way too often for a professional football team.
So I love how you went that whole spiel and you once mentioned Jamie Collins.
I know.
Now I understand that you want to illustrate your point to the referee. And I think the referee definitely overreacted here with a flop of the century by a referee. All he had to do was just fly backwards and take a back wrestling bump from the Jamie Collins headbutt. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know what Collins was thinking. You can't ever touch a referee, but it was.
I'm pretty sure hilarious. You got that from being a Patriot anyway. So.
Oh yeah. By the way, you want to talk about analytical? Matt Patricia, he's a legitimate rocket scientist. I'm not kidding. He was recruited by NASA. He chose the Patriots. So, and I mean, he made the right choice, defensive coordinator for many years. But it seems that when people leave New England, they have a hard time gaining success.
Oh God!
And I'm looking in the direction of not only Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, but how about we go to Tennessee with Steven Gostkowski, and even in Detroit with Matt Patricia, Jamie Collins, and the bunch, and Miami with Van Noy and the boys losing to New England. It's really funny to see these guys leave the Patriots organization and get paid, but then they really can't put it up because really what it is it's their immense talent mixed with the best coach that has ever stood on the sidelines of a gridiron. So that's exactly
I think you're looking at I mean, coaching says everything. I think that Belichick just has the head coach thing down pat. I think he also, in a way, lets his defensive coordinators be themselves and offensive coordinators like Josh McDaniels, they let them do them the way. But I love how the Jamie Collins thing, it kind of goes like it's this unspoken rule in all of sports, right? And for those of us who don't know what we're talking about, basically we'll just chalk it up to a football player headbutting a referee, right? That's the best way we can look at it. And you can be emotional and you can be passionate, but like at the end of the day, you can't touch an official, whether it's MMA, whether it's cricket. I mean, look at Djokovic in tennis, like accidental or not, officials are kind of like family and kids in the mafia. Like you just don't go anywhere near an official for that kind of stuff. So I don't ever try and defend it. I certainly don't condone it. It was unfortunate to watch, especially week 1. But I mean, it's not appropriate in any regard.
No, definitely not. Okay, we should just move on.
Yeah,
This
buddy.
isn't the NFL podcast. That's not what we're talking about. Although there are some punches thrown in the NFL,
Oh yeah.
depending on what games you're watching week in, week out. But
Hmm.
we got a rundown to get to as I look at my notes here. We had a fight night this past week, but there is more important stuff to get to. A little bit of a somber note that we want to start off with here. Something that has affected a lot of people in the fight world, and something that I was hoping this would be one of the good things Donald Trump will get done, but unfortunately he was just unable to save this poor kid, Navid Afkari,
Yeah.
the Iranian wrestler who was hung by the government for protesting civil rights and just human rights, and it just normal things that we take for granted day in and day out. And this talented young wrestler was snuffed out. I really don't have any thoughts other than to say that I'm horrified, and it just goes to show that we still live in a world where this is possible.
It's crazy, Um, to give everyone a very small background, um, Naveed Afkari is a national wrestling champion and is very well known uh, in that as an Iranian like icon in that sport. But there's a different world out there. So essentially, he's an Iranian wrestler, and he was sentenced to death and eventually executed, unfortunately, by the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the reason why he was sentenced to death and executed was simply for protesting against the regime during a period of unrest in 2018. So not only are these charges 2 years old, right? And then he was additionally charged with the murder of an undercover security guard from the same sort of regime, right? But they basically tied two things together. What they were saying was he was protesting, and because he was there in the same vicinity as when this unfortunate murder or death took place, that they must have been involved, right? So while he what happened was they forced a confession on him, tricking him into having a lesser sentence, but also because it took away the death sentence of his other brothers. So the three brothers all protested. He basically gave his life in a sense so that his other brothers would have a lesser sentence. Now, the sentence is still 54 years for the younger brother and 27 for the older brother, but it's really, really complicated, and it was horrific. So on the 12th of September, in a prison in Shiraz, he was executed. Dana White had personally called out and asked the world leadership to help out with this, and the UN. Donald Trump did the same thing. Unfortunately, Iran was not going to budge on it. So unfortunately, yeah, he passed away. But he was a hardworking person who was known in the national wrestling circuit as well as the international wrestling circuit, and his death was felt by a lot of people, including some people who participated in the card. So there's a little bit of background, but it was very sad. And the UFC paid a nice tribute to him during the broadcast, which I believe is one of the first time that's ever happened for an Iranian athlete outside of being a UFC fighter. So it goes to show you the overall impact that Mr. Afkari had on a lot of people.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for sure. I read that his brothers were also charged and were up for the death sentence as well. So as much as
Yeah.
it's never good to hear someone serving a 57-year sentence in prison, there is some sort of nobility in, I guess, giving your life for your family, right? And
Mhm.
I guess we could all only hope that our lives could mean as much, right? Hopefully now his life not only goes to save his brothers, but shines a light on this situation. Now we know we've known about it, but like this is a huge moment in the world, right? Like this is an athlete at the peak of his career that was snuffed out
Yeah.
by petulant, angry government just
Yeah, I
for no
mean, the guy's
reason.
26, 27 years old. I mean, he's barely reached his athletic prime, for crying out loud. The guy was born in 1993. That's when I was 10. Like he spent 10 years in competition. He's from 16 to 20, from 16 to or 15 to 25. He was heavily competing. But I mean, to insult a leader or spreading propaganda and all that stuff is on par with like basically treason to God in that country. So I don't know a lot about the ins and the outs. All I know is that it really became a heavy sentence, and then they have a kind of a no strike policy for that. But yeah, it's a corrupt, horrible thing to happen to the wrong kind of person, and it's sad to see it. Although, you know, Donald Trump, the IOC president, so the International of the Olympic Committee, the president, Thomas Bach, he called for it. I mean, it's tough, you know. He was a popular wrestling guy. Yeah,
it goes to show how little sports matters really in the world.
I know. Especially in some parts of the world, yeah.
That's right, and especially like in these parts of the world, right? So it's a horrible situation, and we will move on from talking about it to some more uplifting topics. Talking about the past fight night, and we have a lot to talk about for the upcoming one. So just going to focus on the main event here: Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill, and Angela making being the first black woman in a main event of the UFC card. So congratulations for that. And some saying that this is right along the lines of the Claudia Gadelha fight, where she should have won this one, but she lost it by the judges. And I can tell you, I watched the whole fight. And that one judge, I don't know if he had like a pirate's eye patch on or something, or was looking down under the table, dropped his pen during a round and guessed, but yeah, he got it wrong for sure. I had Waterson winning, but I did not have her winning 4 out of 5 rounds.
No, John, we kind of scored it the exact same way, although we kind of watched it in different settings. I had to watch the first little bit with the sound completely off. And I'm just watching the action. I'm going like, oh, like Angela Hill's bringing it. I thought it was 2-2 going into the 5th, and the 5th was still pretty close. I think Waterson landed what you look at sort of cleaner shots, in the sense where a lot of Angela Hill's stuff was sort of grouping punches and kind of rushing it a little bit. Pardon me. Yeah, the one judge definitely got it wrong. It was a super close fight. At the end of the day, I think we won because it was such a great fight. It was action-packed. And there's one thing I wanted to point out that wasn't really covered that much in the broadcast, is that, remember, this fight got graduated, got promoted up to being the main event. And normally a fight that's agreed upon and for a 3-round fight stays a 3-round fight, even if it's promoted. These girls agreed on no extra training camp. Same scenario, right, to go 5 rounds. And we should all be thankful that happened, because the fight was just so good, and we got an extra 2 rounds when contractually we didn't even really need to have it, or that we might not even have gotten it. So it was a great fight nonetheless. I do think, man, Angela Hill looked phenomenal, but I don't know what else she can do. Like, she's a great fighter. She looked fantastic. Her cardio was there. It just wasn't enough.
She's got to finish. Right.
Yeah.
She's not finishing. And it's the way I looked at it is, in the first 2 rounds, I was like, this is going to be dangerous. Right. I automatically went to sportsinteraction.com and made a bet. I said, this is not lasting all 5 rounds. Angela Hill is going to take her out by round 3, round 4 tops if this continues. But it seemed to recede rather quickly with the pressure that Waterson was putting on her, and that the head kicks, the difference in the stances, and it almost seemed like Angela lost some power as the fight went on. She was advancing, but she was advancing without throwing anything significant, right? So she was landing, but not landing with any sort of force. Force to me and you knock one of us out, but to a trained fighter, right? It's not enough force to really affect, right? So that's why I think Waterson ended up taking the fight. She landed more significant strikes later on in the fight. Her kicking was definitely more successful. So and that's part of her karate stance, right? That's exactly that's her game plan. She uses her kicks a lot. She has a reputation as a point fighter. So how did you look at this fight? Did you think that maybe she was trying to get out of that? Because it almost looked like she wanted to finish her. She had her back. She had Angela's back a couple times there. I thought she was going to be able to get that choke in, but she just couldn't get the arm underneath the neck.
Yeah, you know what? I think Michelle Waterson is someone who's very well coached, and she takes cues very, very well. And I think that, she's somebody who cares very much about her fandom, and she's very gracious to her fans. I think it mattered to her that she started gaining that reputation. And there was a few fights but it takes two to tango, right? Like Angela Hill was going to come at her, and I don't think Angela Hill was going to let her point fight. And I think that was what Michelle Waterson needed. She has the skills. She has a very large tool set to be able to play with in there. But you're right. She doesn't have that like fearful kind of one punch, Jessica Andrade kind of thing where like she could knock you out. But I think that once it got to the ground, she is a finisher. There is no point fighting for her when it gets to the ground. You'll notice that the majority of the time when her finishes come, they generally come when she's using her ground game, and she's got very high level jiu-jitsu despite kind of just getting her brown belt in the ring there at the end of the fight. But I think that I can't wait to see her use that more. Maybe use her kicks and her punches to set up her takedowns versus it being more of a defensive mechanism. But whatever she's doing, it's working. Her winning percentage is pretty high. She kind of wins two, loses one, wins two, loses one. The fights that she does lose, they are generally, pretty close fights. But yeah, I think that I would like to see her implement more of a finishing style, and look what happens to people like Jorge Masvidal. Like once they start putting it together and they start finding that extra step, they can become killers. And Michelle Waterson definitely has the skills and the experience to put that together and to become a real threat on her feet as well as on the ground.
It's funny because I believe I don't know if it was DC, but someone had made the comparison of Angela Hill to Masvidal, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In the way that she was losing, she loses a bunch, right? And then she needs
Mm-hmm.
to redefine herself. And there was that point when Masvidal had to go away, and he came back and he started knocking people out. He started baptizing people, as he says, right? So maybe Angela Hill needs to just go away, needs to take a breath, needs to reassess how she's going to attack, and then come back and start baptizing people. I don't know if you got to watch the post-fight show, but before we change subjects, there was a great little behind-the-scenes blooper moment live to air for the entire world. They were goofing off on set, on camera, doing the intro in funny voices, not knowing they were on, asking how much time they had till they were on, live on air. It was fantastic. I tweeted about it. A bunch of people got to see it. So it was, for a guy who's done stuff on camera, and, you kind of have to be loosey-goosey to be straightforward and ready to go when the light turns red. It was a little funny to see that they had no idea that the entire world was watching them goof off. So, yeah.
I didn't see it live, but I saw the clip, and I got to say, I love when things humanize people, and it kind of seems to be a bit of a running theme lately. Like, I think people are just kind of sick of just crap and disingenuousness. So when I saw the clip, I just thought that's awesome. And I love some of my favorite like hot mic moments in MMA have been when people aren't thinking that you're watching. There's a famous clip when at UFC 100 when George St. Pierre is fighting Thiago Alves, and he comes back to the corner, I think after the third round. I think it's the third round. And he says to his coach at the time, which is Greg Jackson from Jackson Wink MMA in Albuquerque, he says, I pulled my groin. And Greg Jackson goes, I don't care. Hit him with it. Hit him with that groin. That's what champions are made of. I don't care if you pull, hit him with it. And this is George St. Pierre you're talking to, right? And he just kind of okay,
okay, I'm gonna figure that out.
And Greg Jackson again, John Jones chokes out Lyoto Machida, drops him, which and one of my the best walk-off submissions ever. Drops the guy and goes back to his corner, and Greg Jackson goes, "Hey, John, go out there and get some fans," because John Jones has always had that love-hate thing. So just some of my favorite things are always when people aren't listening. I loved seeing the clip of just the whole team kind of becoming humans, and they have a certain professionalism they have to keep when they're on camera. It's nice to see that they're just exactly like any one of us when they're off camera. Did
you clock how identical Anthony Smith and Rashad's suits were? They were literally like one shade of blue off of each other.
Yeah. But I always find it compelling too when you see guys that have that kind of chemistry, considering Anthony Smith has finished Rashad Evans in the octagon. I always say to myself, God damn, how can you go sit beside that guy after? but it just shows you the kind of professionalism that they have there. But I did notice that they seem to love that they love rocking that sort of style of suit.
Well, it's funny, right? You don't. They definitely don't plan that, right? So they show up, and what's the first thing you're thinking, right? It's like, oh my god, really? He had to wear the blue suit today? Like,
Yeah.
anyway, it's just these funny things that you these funny little moments that you said that humanize people, right? These
Yeah,
things
I
that,
love that stuff.
happen in everyday life to us. So moving on, we've got a big fight card coming up: Covington versus Woodley, fight night at the Apex, the small octagon. We're gonna start off with our boy TJ. He's fighting.
Yeah.
He's fighting to open up the pre-card, and looking forward to seeing him do Canada proud in the featherweight division, I believe, correct?
Yeah, exactly right. I'm super excited for this whole card. You know, people sometimes get on the UFC a little bit about, you know, the quality or like the depth of their card. This is one of those. I mean, they're not all going to be absolute home runs, right? And this fight takes place, the UFC Apex. It's going to be on ESPN Plus this Saturday, the 19th. But it is actually matchup wise. I was looking at the odds before I came on the show. There's only 2 fights on here that extend beyond the minus 280 for any favorite, which goes to show you that it's a real good matchmaking card. There's a few discrepancies as far, you know, Colby Covington came out as a huge betting favorite, likely on the heels of Tyron Woodley's last performance, right? He looked very flat against Gilbert Burns. And there's been a lot of questions of, you know, how busy he has a rap career. He's on TMZ on a weekly basis. He's starring in different sort of Hollywood B movies and all that stuff. So his commitment's been questioned here, and his ability to pull the trigger. And some of his coaches have talked about it. What's crazy is that out of nowhere, this video surfaces of Tyron Woodley flying out Jorge Masvidal, who used to be roommates with Colby Covington, and now they're sworn enemies, right? Tyron Woodley brings out Jorge Masvidal to train with them. So this is a double slap in the face. Like, Tyron Woodley wants nothing to do with Colby Covington anymore because they used to fight in the same gym. And then on top of that, you've got Jorge Masvidal, who used to be a part of that gym, and they used to all be friends or get along for the most part. And now they're kind of, it's like Colby has no friends. Now, Colby has since left the American Top Team in Florida and is doing his own thing. So we've yet to see that. But he's still a minus 360 favorite, which is nuts. So this to me is Tyron Woodley doing everything he can. If he doesn't get up for this fight and really see the way, like the Tyron Woodley that beat Robbie Lawler, that for better or for worse beat Wonder Boy the first 2 times, stopped Darren Till. We need to see that kind of Tyron Woodley. He's at the ripe old age of getting to 40. And Covington's young, and Covington we're going to see for at least another 5, 6, 7 years, hopefully. But this is really a fight that we got to see the best of Tyron Woodley. I think that, to me, it's a make or break fight. Again, this is the puncher's chance. We're not experts. We're armchair experts at best. But I think when you have a lot going for you outside of the cage, it makes it a lot harder for you to focus when you're inside of the cage.
Yeah. So I guess you wanted to jump into the main event right away. I can go with the flow here.
Sorry, buddy.
No, nothing to be sorry about. Lots to talk about on the card. So Covington, Covington, Woodley, Covington, like you said, he's lost a lot of friends. This guy, he kind of makes people's skin crawl. In my opinion, he's just one of those guys who almost feels like he'll do anything to become famous, sell his soul to become famous. Leech off of a far right wing group of fans to become famous. He had a video with the president recently.
Yeah.
There is a lot of questions about this fight, but there's one question, Jordan, that I need an answer from you, and I know you'll have a good one. Is this fight racially charged?
Wow, Jesus. Okay. I'm going to say no. And here's why I'm going to say this. I'm going to say no because even if it was, and I'm going for more of a Colby Covington thing, if this was even remotely racially charged on Colby's side, it would be for promotion only, which would be despicable. But I almost wouldn't put it past him. He's insulted people's wives, families, backgrounds, upbringings, political views, you name it. I don't think you can't stop Colby Covington from insulting part of you. The reason I would think that even if it would be bubkiss, is because that he's trained at a gym that is so diverse for so many years that it would just be putting on an act. And I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt that even if you are a Trump supporter, it doesn't mean you're 100% going to be racist. It might be that you have a high likelihood that you might be, but I think everyone deserves their own individuality in a certain regard. And I don't believe Colby Covington is a racist, but I wouldn't put it past him to sell the fight.
I feel I need to expand and explain. I don't technically mean is Tyron Woodley and Colby Covington racist. I mean, is this fight racially charged in a way where you're going to Colby Covington is taking advantage of a far right group of people, right? And Tyron Woodley, just by nature, and he's talked about it, his Instagram has shown it, just by nature, is representing a group of people. So once again, I ask you now that I've explained, is this fight racially charged?
Yeah, John, when you put it like that, I can't say you're wrong. I have a hard time agreeing with racial motivations. I think that it's hard to discuss that. I mean, it shouldn't be, but it kind of is sometimes when it comes down to sports, especially in sports. But it's hard for me to say that you're wrong. And I say that because Colby really likes to puff his chest, and he's very much forthcoming in where he stands politically. And that seems to charge up a lot of his fan base, and also it's used as kind of a way to provoke the other side. There's obvious racial tension in America right now, and for you to come out and support Trump so fully and so blatantly, it's hard to say that your intent wouldn't be to poke the other side a little bit. I'm not saying that anything he's saying is racist, but I think that the idea of it being racially charged by having such a strong Trump supporting front, I think it would be hard for you to deny that you had, good intentions by pushing that aspect of your personality to the forefront, especially to promote this fight.
So here's where I stand on it, Jordan, and this is the problem I might have with it. And I guess I lied a little bit earlier when I said we were going to get into lighter topics because now we're talking about racially charged situations. But I was going to save this for the end of the show, so that's my disclaimer. Here's my problem with it. When you look back to the McGregor Nurmagomedov fight, that was a bunch of Irish people who were supercharged, and when the bad thing happened, the bad thing got worse, and it turned into a situation at Las Vegas. My problem, or my questions that remain in this situation are: should Tyron Woodley lose convincingly and Colby Covington does something degrading that he's been known to do before? Does that cause a situation nationally? Does that cause a situation publicly? I'm not talking about these boys. I know these guys are fighters, and honestly, I know Covington's just full of shit and he's just selling it for the dollars. He's literally he's the fake Conor McGregor. In my opinion, he's a knockoff dollar store Conor McGregor. So that's that done and said. Is this going to cause a problem in the world? Are we going to see an issue outside of the fight come the result of this?
It reminds me that the fact that I'm happy that the UFC is not marketing this fight that way. So in that sense, it reminded me that I'm happy that you're not using race or culture to drive the agenda. But yeah, I mean, look at, it's there's all these layers are hitting the face at the same time. I think that, I'm going to turn this one on Colby. I think if you want to be a true American and you want to promote the fact that you're, Mr. America, regardless of your political leanings, you got to understand that Americans have always stood up for the rights of Americans, and Tyron Woodley is as American as anybody is, as much of American as Colby Covington is. So I'd like to actually almost issue a challenge in a way to be like, if race is, if your indifference or your difference to race or your notions of there needing to be separate racial types, if it gets in the way of how you're fighting or what you're going to do fight-wise, then, you have to take a step back even further and say, like, how American are you being? Because Americans have for better or for worse, always made some sort of historical push to include, multi-ethnic communities. I'm kind of beating around the question a little bit. I think that it has every type of, or every piece, every line of the recipe to end up in something that would be similar to the Habib Conor thing. And I think that they'd be wise to steer away from it. I think that fighting should have nothing to do with what's going on right now. But yeah, I mean, as outspoken as Colby is, I think that this could get him in a lot of trouble.
Well, he almost feels like a mascot, right? Like as much as he's doing it to gain popularity and he's doing it for his own betterment, and maybe he doesn't mean it wholeheartedly. We don't know where he stands. We don't see sit with him in a room alone without the cameras on, right? We don't know that stuff, but he kind of looks like a mascot, right? So that's the problem here. That's why Tyron Woodley is having to field these questions on Instagram. And to his his credit, he has turned it all down. He's like, I'm fighting for me. I'm fighting for my family. If you do not want me to knock out Colby Covington just to knock out Colby Covington, I don't want your support. So he's not igniting a rage or of a fan base, right? So he's doing the right things, and I just hope that that continues all the way through and past the fight night. I don't want anything happening from this, but you just look at what could happen and the powder keg that they both sit on, and you just have to.
And you know what? I gotta say, and you bring up a good point. And again, personally, I always find the concept of race and culture, and especially the role it's playing in our everydays today, I kind of naturally have taken a bit of an apprehensive step towards it, because as a Canadian, I don't really understand the climate. I'm not there and all that stuff. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it's hard. Like I was saying before, it's hard to ignore it. It's impossible to say that it isn't affecting every other sport that we're handling it. And I will say, I'm not trying to be, a corporate Joe here, but I will say, there's been an absence of that in the media. And I want to give credit where credit's due. As much as I don't like Colby Covington's shtick at times, I know it's made him immensely popular and polarizing. I have noticed a sharp decline in his media. I have never seen him be so quiet before a fight. And I'm wondering if, he does have the good nature about him to take a step back and not try to be the picture with him and Dana White and Justin Gaethje and everything with the president is almost the newest picture I've seen of him outside of the UFC, countdown shows and stuff like that. But, I wonder if it's, if we should be telling the media, in a sense, maybe if you don't push the agenda on the fighters, we can talk more about the fighting. And I say that not trying to ignore what's going on. I think it's good to address it. But I think Tyron Woodley, like you said, when he's fielding those questions, he's like, if I was fighting Colby Covington a year ago, I'd still be looking to beat the shit out of him. Doesn't have to do anything. The fact that it's got probably more to do with the politics of their gym at ATT than anything else. I don't think race plays a role in their actual willingness to fight each other or their eagerness to fight each other. But again, you'd be stupid not to factor in everything that's going on and how it's affecting everything. So it's a fine line. But yeah, I think that these guys, I'm gonna go out and on a limb and just kind of say, I think they've got this together. I think that there's a competitiveness and there's just a genuine dislike, and that's going to be enough to hopefully see some good old fashioned violence on Saturday.
Yeah. Speaking on Covington's side, you would hope that even if he wasn't smart enough, a coach was smart enough to sit him down and be like, listen, man, we know what you're doing here, but in this situation, the coaches are always paying attention to what the other fighter is doing, right? They'll be looking at their Instagram. They'll be looking at things like that. So they know what the other side is saying. They know what the fan base is saying. So if someone's smart enough to plug in and be like, listen, we know what you want to stand for and that you're trying to build a fan base, but let's just back off of this and let's just fight.
Yeah.
So, and good on you bring up the media too, because that's the third part of the equation. It's not just the fighters, it's the media. You do not need to plug the headlines. It doesn't need to be sensational. The only thing that needs to be sensational about this is what happens inside of the octagon. And personally, after hearing Tyron Woodley, this is personal for him. I think that the old man's got it in him. After looking at what Alistair Overeem was able to do, after looking at what Ovince St. Peru was able to do, I think we're going to continue on with the old man power in the UFC small octagon. And Tyron Woodley is going to, shut that mouth of Colby Covington. Whether or not Tyron Woodley works his way back into a title picture, I don't know. That takes a lot of desire and a lot of dedication that we don't know if he has anymore. But I think he can definitely get up for this one and put a fist in someone's mouth.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, Tyron Woodley has one of the scariest punches in all of mixed martial arts. And when he's on, first of all, he's insanely accurate. And he's a very well thought cerebral fighter at times. You've just kind of seen him become a little bit less gun shy, but I think that if he lets those hands go, I mean, Jesus, some of the punches that he's hit people with in the past are frightening. He's one of the scariest punchers I've ever seen. But I do think that, again, Father Time is undefeated, my friend. And you hear guys that, Daniel Cormier, fresh off of his retirement, said, my body wasn't exactly moving as quickly as it could be. Now, the physical specimen that Tyron Woodley is compared to Daniel Cormier is a different story. But I do think that this is going to be a good kind of a litmus test, or a good measuring stick for where Tyron Woodley is and where he's going to be going forward. And I can't help but think that Colby Covington might need a W too, because he came off that Kamaru Usman fight with a near broken jaw. And while it was an amazing fight, I mean, Kamaru Usman's only getting better. So, like, are we going to see a new and improved Colby Covington? Because otherwise, we've seen improvements in Kamaru Usman's game, So I'd like to see where Colby is too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and I mean, Colby makes it hard to not want to break his jaw, right? So
I know. I love that you're a wrestling guy, John. Like, I love the heel. I love that there doesn't have to be. I mean, it's the worst when the kayfabe sort of broken on Colby Covington, because everyone's talked about that he's actually nothing like this. But I like a heel. I loved when Chael Sonnen was the way he was, because he was like kind of the CM Punk, where he was like a prick, but he was just poking the one guy, and then it was like, oh, I lost, Colby Covington always seems butthurt by everything, which makes him kind of like the guy you just love to hate. But I love a good heel. I love when people turn heel,
I love heels in wrestling.
Yeah.
I think it's just this type of heel rubs me the wrong way. I like Chael Sonnen. I really did.
Yeah.
He was really smart on the mic. He was really clever. He was quick. I think Chael Sonnen would have made an amazing wrestler. Too bad he never went into the business. I guess he just wasn't big enough for Vince to pursue. But
he knew the right supplements, though, didn't he?
Yeah,
love you,
yeah,
Chael.
He definitely did. I think it's just he just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, this Colby Covington, right? I just hope that Tyron Woodley turns back the hands of time one more time, and maybe finishes the job on that Colby Covington job. Maybe there's a little bit of residual damage still laying around. You talked about a measuring stick. Moving on, Donald Cerrone is the co-main on this card, and that is as big of a measuring stick in the entire UFC as I can ever imagine. It's the first time we've seen him since the McGregor fight, and he's welcomed a new little bebe into his life. So it's going to be interesting to see how he performs at Apex.
Yeah, you know what? The one thing I will say is that as much as Donald Cerrone loves to stay busy, I think that while he might need a round to get back into things, I like that we haven't seen him since January. It's funny because on the flip side, I don't know how we don't have a Conor McGregor fight, regardless of crowds. But like we've discussed that before.
Yeah, you got Cerrone again before McGregor.
Yeah, which is crazy. But I think that what I like the most about this fight is that it's Donald Cerrone, one, staying at welterweight, fighting more around where his natural weight is, won't have a massive weight cut. I think the guy he's fighting, Nico Price, is perfect kind of fight that Cerrone wants. Good mix of ground, interesting on the feet, good variety. It's a great fight for him. And I think that, he's had these sort of 9 months off. I'm going to round up to 9 months off, right? He has a kid in the middle. He seems to have a new motivation every time he has a new kid and stuff. So I love seeing this stuff, I love that the fact that his kids' names are Danger and Riot. Like, I think that's just so perfect for him. So I'm always excited to see him fight. I feel like we see small little improvements in his games and sometimes some regression, but he's a can't miss fighter who has something to prove not only to himself, but he probably feels that he has something to prove to his family as well. Nico Price is a great, fantastic opponent for him. And I can't wait to see him back. Hopefully that fire's lit.
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up McGregor and you brought up fans, and the NFL, they've got fans. They've got 22% of the building. Kansas
Yeah.
City Chiefs had 17,000 people in there booing the good people on the field who were standing arm in arm. And shame on you, for shame. But
What a bad
Mike,
look that was.
before I get into the Cerrone Price fight, do you see Dana White possibly trying to pull something off in a football stadium where he gets fans back?
I think there's a lot of incentive. I think that while it was good that the UFC came in first and started doing these fights, being the first sport back, because it's like tennis. You could probably have gotten tennis back. But the idea of crowds in general, especially, I think it's just too high risk. I think the UFC took a lot of heat for what they were doing. And they're not gravitating towards it right away. Dana White also keeps dismissing it, where when it came to Fight Island, and he was like, I'm getting fights back. I want these cards to go. He was, didn't care if the head of ESPN was telling him to stop. He's like, no, we're going. He's been adamant on there not being any fans. Do I think they should? No. I'm totally fine with the way things are. I absolutely like it. It's going to make me want that in-person event, massive, a lot more, I think there's probably some sort of middle ground. If you look at what the NBA does with like the Microsoft Teams thing, having people watching the fight and having it more engaging on the screen. But I don't see them doing it. I would hate to sit. I don't want to see the UFC in an empty arena or half empty arena. It's either empty and I know it's empty, or it's full because I know it's going to be full. I don't want that middle ground for some reason. I did not like the look of that Chiefs game.
They gonna rent out the WWE Thunderdome at the Amway Center in Tampa and put everyone on the screens there.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know. I just it's just intriguing, right? Just to see you talk about the UFC needing fans to have a McGregor fight, and that's one way you can get 17,000 people in a building is if you're at a football stadium. Now the optics would be difficult, but if you look at SoFi's Jumbotron will be perfect for hosting a UFC event because everyone will be able to see everything, right? You just want to say you were there. It's not technically a lot of the times when you're up in the nosebleeds at a UFC event, you don't see what's going on in the octagon because you're watching the Jumbotron. So there's no difference.
That's a big one, and that I could do a whole episode on how cool that stadium looks. It is tailor made for a big event like that. I just think that a little bit of patience will go a long way with this whole pandemic thing. That's just my opinion. And I think that, I there's something about like hearing all the kicks and punches. I'm obsessed with it.
Oh, I love it. I love being able to get corners.
Yeah. Even some of this stuff you don't realize. I didn't realize how much the fighters actually talk to each other when they're in there. I never realized that. So I'm getting used to this, and I'm still going to be fine with it for a little while. But I think, now you got my fanboy thing kicking full gear. Imagine if like the first fight back is that stadium, is SoFi Stadium, and then you pack it with like Connor headlines, John Jones first fight in heavyweight, throw, just put all the stars on one card, sell that. What's the capacity? It's 120,000.
It's huge. Yeah, it's something like that. It's over 100,000. That's for sure.
It's crazy. So like, why not pack that thing? Breaks the box office a ticket sale record. Break your own record, which was would have been the Australia card. Before that, it was the Toronto card, and just absolutely blow the roof off it.
Imagine the noise on that place. Imagine having to fight under that sort of noise.
Isn't it also like acoustically built for like to add or something like that?
Yeah.
I gotta look it up.
Yeah, it's really funny. I never realized how much the Superdome in New Orleans was acoustically built for noise. When I heard the referee announcing a penalty, and it sounded like he was hello, and it was
it's crazy.
It's hilarious. But yeah, we don't need to get too far off course. It would be awesome to see an event at SoFi, and talking about Donald Cerrone, talking about Nico Price. Donald Cerrone, he's a journeyman fighter. He always has been a journeyman fighter, and he's not really. The title is never going to be in his future, in my opinion. So, when do you see him possibly hanging it up, and what's the outcome of this fight?
It's a great opponent. I think that I have a funny feeling this fight's going to go the distance. I think Nico Price is a decent fighter. He's a little bit younger than Donald is. He's very unorthodox, very strange, loves to stand and bang, has got decent ground game. He's kind of tailor-made for a guy like Donald Cerrone, not necessarily to beat, but to put on a good show. His last opponents, Connor's a much more high-level striker, in my opinion, than Cerrone was. Cerrone is. Tony Ferguson has a bit of a higher work rate. Justin Gaethje just has faster, heavier hands. So you've just seen people kind of, but Nico Price is right where Donald Cerrone is, skill level in a lot of sense. I think it's going to go the distance. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think you're just looking at fun fights for Donald Cerrone. I think that, if he's lucky, and not that that he needs to be lucky, he's got the skills to do anything that he wants. It depends on how hard he trains and how much he wants to grow and how much longer he wants to do this. But I think you're only going to find interesting, fun fights for Cerrone going forward. I'd love to see him fight Nate Diaz again. Like to see him fight Nick Diaz. I was thinking to myself, like, if Nick Diaz is really coming back, why not throw him in there with Cerrone? So he matches up well. He's still going to draw very, very well, but I think he has proved what he's going to prove. And it hurts my heart to even say that because he's been one of my favorite fighters for a long time. But I think that whatever he was going to do in the sport, he's done. And however he wants to literally ride off in the sunset, being the cowboy that he is, I think that he should. But I think they're going to find him good opponents like Nico Price, fun guys like that he can fight to make it, to either sadly the younger generation to build a name off him, or for him to rack up some really cool wins towards the end of his career.
So who wins, Nico or Donald?
You know what? I'm going to go Donald Cerrone decision.
Okay, it's interesting, and your point of view with Cerrone is basically where I'm at. The guy is a surefire UFC Hall of Famer. Based on the amount of fights, the amount of time he's had in the octagon. You'll see that hat and those gloves on a wall, a plaque somewhere in the UFC Hall of Fame. And he's a guy that the UFC, that Dana White knows they can slap his name on a card and it's recognizable. It's recognizable to guys like you and me. It's recognizable to layman's fans even. He's a guy that you can always put in a co-main event to fill out a card. He's always going to show up and he's always going to show it. So hopefully he can get the win this weekend against Nico Price. We'll see if your prediction is correct. Moving on to a fight that apparently everybody wants to talk about, and one that was added recently, and just in such a shocking manner. Not only did this man get a fight for this weekend, but he also got a fight for a month later against Damian Maia. Khamzat Chimaev, the choo-choo train that is running all over the UFC.
Jesus.
Is going to go up against Gerald Meerschaert. I believe I just destroyed that last name. Do you see, have you seen this before, where a fighter has been booked twice on one? And what does this do to poor Gerald's confidence?
You know what? First of all, I think it's great for Gerald's confidence, because the interviews that I've seen with him, he's pissed. Like, this guy's either going to come out way too emotional, or he's going to be just charged enough to make this going to be interesting. Chimaev is just, in the little that we've seen him in the octagon, it's been so gosh darn impressive that it's hard not to say anything. But when I go back and I started watching some of his older, I don't think he's had a competitive fight. Like, he's that good. I think that they gave him something. So interesting enough story. So his first fight with Gerald, again, I'm going to let you butcher the last name in case that, a lot of more people watch this. I don't even want to take a stab at that. So he's also booked to fight Damian Maia at 170, a different weight class. So they're giving him like a walk around weight fight, and then they're going to give him he does fight in welterweight. So they're going to give him this fight. I have a crazy a conspiracy theory, and then I'll give you what I think. I think he's going to get by this fight pretty well. I think Gerald's, Meerschaert's you want to talk about journeyman. His record is, I think he's 34-13 or something like that.
Something like that,
yeah. So he's at a pretty good, he's a good fighter. He's very well rounded, but I think you're looking at a style that he hasn't seen before, with an intensity and a pressure that he's not seen before. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know why you would book a guy who was not guaranteed to win another fight in a different weight class in November against freaking Damian Maia. You know what I mean? Like, but then again, he beat two people in an 11-day span in two different weight classes. Like, how do you say no? And I think this is the kind of thing that Dana White gets super excited for. Something he's never done before. Something to stir the pot. Something to kind of get out of the monotony. I mean, I'm sure even the COVID situation is kind of worn off on him a little bit. He's kind of probably sick and tired of fielding questions about this. You know, he seems to be really interested in like talking about Chimaev and what he's willing to do. And, you know, and it's an interesting, interesting experiment. I can't wait to see it pay off. But as far as the actual matchup, I think Chimaev, I think it's going to blow him out of the water. I think it's going to be his third impressive win this summer. And on to Damian Maia, who was still a real threat with the level of jiu-jitsu that he possesses.
Man, it's like a WWE style move, right? And it's funny that UFC is owned by WME, an entertainment company, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds straight out of the Vince McMahon playbook. Let's book this guy in 2 fights back to back, basically back to back anyway. There's a little bit of a rest in between, not much. I love him. I love his attitude. I love the way he fights. Do we see this get into the first round? Does this go to round 2?
I think that with the amount of if anyone wants to see the interview, Gerald Mershard had an interview with, I believe it was MMA Junkie, and he was he feels like the most disrespected person in the world, and he's gonna shock the world. I think he's just gonna come out way too aggressive. He's gonna either get himself taken down, slammed, or if he's able to even catch Chimaev with a punch, which 2 other people have barely done, if they've even done that. You know, I don't think a guy like it's not like you're jumping up from fighting, whoever he beat before, the John Phillips kind of people, and then all of a sudden you're fighting, a high-level striker like Jorge Masvidal, right? Like, it's not a jumping competition. Gerald's a little bit more experienced than the guys that Chimaev has fought before, but it's not going to be so much of a difference in striking that he's not going to have ever seen it before. So I think you're going to see what I'm hoping for is kind of that intense. If you guys remember Marcus Brimage versus Conor McGregor, it was Conor's debut, and Conor just got under Brimage's skin, and Brimage is like, you can't hang with me, and came out way too aggressive, like he had something to prove, and it was the mental warfare that ultimately beat him. And I think it's going to be kind of something similar. I think Gerald's going to come out, going to want to prove himself. He's going to want to say, hey, I'm no pushover. I'm this. I'm way better. I think Gerald's going to come in way too emotional. So I think Chimaev, yes, first round.
I lost you there for a minute, but it didn't lose too much. So, it's interesting to see the evolution of Chimaev in the UFC. We've seen him on the pre-fight card. We've seen him on the main card. We see him this weekend, third last on the card. If he comes out and he takes out Gerald in the first round, is he the co-main / main event for his card on Fight Island?
Yeah, you gotta be. If he gets out of there in the first round and barely gets touched again, I don't see how you don't. I honestly don't.
Yeah,
I mean you're looking at a guy like no. What is this I have going here?
As Jordan is playing a video from UFC.com, probably.
Literally, what I looked up the interview. Anyway, edit that part out. So my answer was like, yeah, it's hard for you not to book him like that. If he gets another first round finish convincingly and barely gets touched, it's all we're going to be talking about. I bet you if he has an impressive performance, we talk about him more than we talk about the Covington Woodley or even the Cerrone Price fight. There's just going to be something like, it is one of those things. And again, they're building him a lot similar to the way they were building Conor. Like he could have been the co-headliner on this card and we would have been interested, but they put him down a little bit so that they can showcase it. And then you still have 2 great fights after. Now I was looking up Gerald Meerschaert's record, and he's basically been trading wins and losses with competition that isn't as high level as I think Chimaev is. So he has a submission loss to Kevin Holland, who's also fighting on this card, right? He got a submission win and then loses a split decision, sorry. Then he wins by submission and then got TKO'd. So like he's very inconsistent. And I think this is a perfect kind of opponent for Chimaev. I think this is a Chimaev showcase fight, and that's what you're going to see. And I think it's placed that way on the card perfectly, not dissimilar to the way Sean O'Malley was. So I think that if you look at the Sean O'Malley and Conor McGregor game plan that the UFC kind of follows sometimes, you get 3 impressive victories, we put you on a main event or co-main event.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Everyone's eyes are definitely on Chimaev and what he can do in this weekend on Fight Night at the Apex. As I stumble over my words, what's intriguing to me is if it'll be fight of the night, right? Like you said, this fight could very easily steal the show. And if he does something flashy yet again, people might not even be giving the attention that the other 2 fights possibly deserve, right? Because you'll still be in the afterglow of what we're looking forward to. Like, we're already talking about it because of what he's done. We're already predicting that he'll do it again, because the best way to predict the future is to look at the past and see what's happened in the past. And you've looked at his upcoming even before the UFC, and it's just been the same thing over and over again until he meets someone who's a legitimate challenge to him. We're going to keep seeing the same thing over and over again. What I love is the fact that you called the Damian Maia fight episodes back. You said that you'd love to see Chimaev face off against Damian Maia, and that would be the first real test. So good call on that one.
Yep.
Looking forward to that fight, man. Is that his first true? It's funny that we're looking past Gerald Meerschaert, but is Maia going to be Chimaev's first true test at I believe 170? You said.
Yeah, I love Damian Maia, and there's no nicer person. And you just see a guy who's basically a jiu-jitsu guy go as far as he has and has done what he's done. But he's in his 40s now as well. And, I hate to use guys as gatekeeper statuses. I almost hate that term, but I don't know what else to call them. Guys that are kind of, measuring sticks for other people. And, Chimaev fighting a guy who is the most dangerous person on the ground maybe ever is a huge test, even with Damian Maia's age. He's not exceptionally chinny. He is held up pretty well, and is a pretty healthy guy. I think it's the win he needs to then you'll see him fight Cerrone. Then you'll see him fight Nico Price. Then you'll see him fight, the who's who of the welterweight division. Carlos Condit is coming back. Dan Hardy's looking for a fight at 30. You'll see that he's got the path in front of him to beat people. Maybe he fights Tyron Woodley or fights Colby Covington in a year or so or less. And what's interesting about the Chimaev placement on the card too, John, is that you've got these flashy up and coming people that people are talking about on the card, right? We've been talking about Johnny Walker kind of finding his own footing and being the next big thing at light heavyweight, right? We've seen Ryan Spann, who he's fighting, with a couple of good victories. It was a Dana White Contender Series guy. Kevin Holland, couple impressive first round finish or knockout finishes the last couple cards. We've been talking lots about these guys, but there's Chimaev basically pulling the curtain for Donald Cerrone, who is one of the most talked about fighters in UFC history. That's how talented and how much people believe in this guy. And I think that, we've covered more about him than we have any other fight other than maybe the headliner, because it's headline worthy stuff. And very rarely does a fighter come along that sparks this much interest. And remember, this guy had this much hype going into it. When he won the fight so convincingly, we were like, wow, this guy's for real. Then he had the 10-day turnaround and looked better at a different weight class. Like, it's just, we've never seen this before. So you have a potentially history-making, benchmark-setting fighter. And it's exactly what we need right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had any other fights that you wanted to key in on, but because Ariel had said this is probably one of the deepest non-pay-per-view, non-title cards that we've seen in quite some time, but you hit on all of it without me even need to bring it up. Before we get out of the card, our boy T.J. Laramie taking on Darrick Minner to open up the night and the pre-show. In the featherweight division, TJ, a Dana White Contender Series guy, and we're looking for a big showing to represent Canada, represent the red and the white. And what do we expect from TJ? Is it going to be a quick start, or is it something that he's going to try and feel out in the first round?
You know what? I can't believe this is going to be the opening fight. It's two things. One, it's great for me because, you know, I have this like nervous tension about watching like up and coming Canadian guys fight because I just want the sport to flourish again up here. It's also very good for our show, but you know, I get that nervous tension every time I see a Canadian fight. So I get it out of the way. I wish it was later on. But I think what we're going to see in this fight is you're going to see a full showcase. The Dana White Contender Series was almost like an appetizer for TJ. I think everyone who saw that his performance there kind of understands that he has another gear. I think we're going to see that other gear. I think that even though he's kind of the first fight on, I think like Darrick Minner is a great opponent for him. You're talking about a seasoned guy who has, you know, he did lose against Grant Dawson, which was fine. You know, it was a good showing on the Benavidez card, Figueiredo card. You know, he looked pretty good. He's a pretty well-seasoned guy. He has a lot of experience. So he's not fighting, you know, it's going to be a great test for him. I think TJ's younger, faster, and he's got the George St. Pierre style that's almost synonymous with the Canadians where, you know, he isn't the greatest boxer, isn't the greatest wrestler, but the way he pieces together the fight game is really, really interesting. He's great at takedowns, great takedown defense, very well-rounded. I see this, again, being a bit of a T.J. Laramie showcase fight. I think he's heavily favored, and for good reason. I think you're going to see a shutout performance. I think that it might go. I hope it doesn't. I hope it gets a quick finish because that'd be awesome for his highlight reel. But I wouldn't be surprised if TJ approaches this thing as a round-by-round fight where he gets to show off all of his skills and really make a statement with an overall performance. I think he shuts out Minner completely and just complete domination from front to back for our Canadian boy, T.J. Laramie, who we are going to try and get on this show. We reached out to him and his people, and we'd love to have him on before the fight, so fingers crossed there. But, yeah, I think
before
that –
or after the fight, let's talk.
Or after the fight, yeah. But I think that what you're going to see now is – it's going to be just one of those things where there's levels to this game, and you're going to see that T.J. Laramie is very, very high level.
All right, so moving on, other headlines in the UFC. There's one big one that I really need to talk about that really need to get your opinion on, and it's Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson, and we have got a gigantic roadblock now. We're not going to get this match because the Diamond has decided that he's going to walk away.
Now, you know what? Fuck, man, pay the man his money. If there's anybody who is pure violent entertainment in this sport, it's Dustin Poirier. I have never, the only fight that didn't deliver as far as one of his performances, maybe Michael Johnson and the Conor McGregor fights, which were just kind of flukes, but they were still ended up in finishes. You're talking about a guy who has unbelievable performances against Pettis, Alvarez, Gaethje, Habib, you know, the fight of maybe the year, other than the Weili Zhang Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight, the fight with Dan Hooker was insane. This guy is a needle moving guy that people love to see, and he's a glorious human being outside of the ring. I don't even know what boxes this guy doesn't check, but if Dustin Poirier comes to you and says, look I can headline a card for you, right? Pull in a couple million people without you needing to put a belt on the line, right? He's guaranteed business. And I think that the fact that the UFC wouldn't pay him, again, we also don't know the numbers, so I'm trying to be fair. But I mean, to me, he's one of those guys you just get the checkbook out for. You just say, how much? You have a number that's probably too much, right? If he wants $1 million to fight, well, that's John Jones money. But if he's like, you know, I want 250 to show and 250 to win, you say no problem, right? But you know, even Tony Ferguson comes out on Twitter and was like, I got your back. pay the man.
Yeah, I was
You
going to
know?
say, the way you're reacting just seems to be the way that the general public, the fight public, has been reacting. Everyone is coming to the defense of Dustin Poirier. Normally, you'll see a situation where when a fighter is talking money, or when someone's talking money, they're like, "Oh, shut up and just go do your job. You're a professional athlete. You're getting paid
Great point.
hundreds of thousands of dollars." But now in this situation, we're seeing the fans, and not only the fans. You brought it up, but even his own opponent stand up and say, "No, go get yours."
Yeah.
And Tony Ferguson going so far as to say, maybe, I don't know if he said it, but maybe he just won't fight anyone else. Go give Dustin Poirier his money. No one else deserves to fight.
So Tony Ferguson, I know, did say it, but John, I want to touch on what you just said. I think that's a fantastic point. I've never seen this before, whether it's a football player or it's a basketball player, or if it's a fighter, John Jones, Jorge Masvidal. They weren't received by the fan base saying, like, oh, he's being greedy, he's made enough money. Like, they weren't. It was a complicated situation that those guys had to defend themselves a bunch of times about numbers and stuff. Lots of follow-up tweets and tertiary arguments, stuff like that. I would say that it was a resounding pay that man when it came to Dustin Poirier. And that's a really good point you brought up, is that that's a test to the fan base and how well he's received by the fighters and the fans, because that's a very rare thing to see fans back that kind of demand up.
Yeah, and I mean, I stand with them. It'll be interesting to see what Dana White does. They talked about the fight's off, and they're going to get a replacement. We don't know what'll happen. If Tony Ferguson refuses to fight, will he just kibosh the entire thing and have another new fight with two other dudes, with Dan Hooker being in there? What's the solution? We don't know, but I know the fight everyone wants to see is Poirier Ferguson.
Yes. So Tony Ferguson has come out and said that he won't fight unless he's fighting Dustin Poirier. So it's Dustin Poirier or nothing. And he revealed that apparently there was a stipulation in the contracts that said that so they wanted it to be on the same card as Gaethje and Khabib. And if depending on who pulled out, the other person would go in. So if Khabib fell out, then Dustin would go in and fight Gaethje because he's beaten Gaethje, right? But if Gaethje pulls out, they were going to put Ferguson in there, right? So Dustin was only guaranteed to fight Gaethje while they're on the same card, which is interesting because you imagine the 6 times the fight's been called off for Ferguson and Khabib. Imagine you get it in the last minute kind of scenario. It would be crazy. So it sounds like Tony Ferguson wants to fight Dustin Poirier or nobody unless it's Khabib, but Khabib's got an opponent. So I love to see the unity. I love to see the unity in fans and fighters. And I mean, God damn it, man. Like, I mean, the wars that guy's been through and the absolute entertainment we've gotten because of Dustin Poirier. And the guy's been around forever, man. You got to treat him the same way you treat Donald Cerrone, man. You pay the guy his money. I think they're going to get it worked out. I think they'll pull it together. I think it's just a small hiccup. I think hopefully in the next little while we'll see an announcement, but I don't even know why there's apprehension. I say double his money if he wants it. Fuck it.
I mean, I love how the fan base is coming out to support Poirier, but unfortunately, I don't think he's got the name recognition. Dustin Poirier is fantastic, but he doesn't have the name recognition of a Jorge Masvidal, where and he doesn't have the UFC over a barrel where he can force them to do something, right? So we might not see this fight. We might not see it happen. This may be the situation where Dana White's like, no, I'm going to stand my ground. I had to give ground on Jorge, but I've got a way around this one. I'm not going to be that person who can be bent over a barrel easily, and I'm going to prove it here. So I can just see the UFC and Dana White doing something like that in that situation. It's not good for us as people who talk about the fights and who enjoy watching them and want to see the best on the best. But then again, this is an entertainment industry and it's a business. It's got to make money. So if they want to figure out a way to make more money, then I can't be mad at them, because without that, they're not going to be around, right?
It's hard to, again, and I mean, Dustin Poirier is looking out for his own interest, and again, Dana White's going to look out for the entire organizations. I just think, man, like, I agree with you on the entertainment side of it, but to be honest, Dustin Poirier is coming off fight of the year. You stick him in there with Tony Ferguson, who basically every one of his fights is fight of the year. I mean, it's a match made in absolute heaven, and it would be entertaining and very competitive. I just think that there's I don't know. I mean, unless it's one of those situations where Dustin Poirier, again, like wants $1 million to show, without being a champion, it's hard to really kind of command that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but I think this kind of checks off the fighting and the entertainment boxes in a way. And maybe this whole controversy is a way to stir up a little more entertainment. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe it's just a way to build the headlines, build the hype for the fight, and Dana White's going to sign it anyway. We'll see where it goes. All right, I don't have anything else except for a little bit of entertainment news that was turned on to me. I was watching the Ariel Helwani DC show today, and man, I could not believe it. I had to look at it for myself. Action Bronson, rapper, chef extraordinaire, dude who was almost 400 pounds, 369 pounds or 68 pounds, has dropped over 110 pounds and is beasting it in the gym with none other than CC Sabathia.
Yeah, man.
So good on Action Bronson. If you haven't checked him out, go check him out on Instagram. It's Bam Bam Baklava.
Yep.
Amazing stuff he's doing. It's just insane. I spent like 10-15 minutes just watching his Instagram videos today.
Yeah, honest to God, like, a 90-pound weight loss is insane for anybody. You lose a little bit of weight easier the heavier that you are, but it's, again, for a guy that just, you got to see it. It's unbelievable, the transition.
Gives guys like you and me a little bit of hope, right?
Honestly, I'm going for a run maybe like right after this. I'll probably eat a pizza. Who am I kidding? But yeah, to be honest, like that kind of commitment is incredible. And I mean, Action Bronson's a cool dude to kind of follow anyways. But to see those, like, I think he was lifting dumbbells, whatever it was in the video I saw, he's got like a long sleeve blue shirt on. Just looks killer, man. Like, good for him. 100 pounds, it's going to be good for his health, good for his family, like I love the show. Fuck That's Delicious. Like I love, that's an amazing show, but like it's, it's must be hard, and anyone that can kind of commit that, and he's our age, like he's 36. I mean, I'm 37, like 36-year-old guy just being like, he wants to live longer for his family and his kids, and that's kind of his motivation. And God damn it, you just love to see it. But good for him, man. Like, honestly, good for him. Great story. And he loves MMA. Half the reason we're talking about it is that he is a giant MMA fan, not even like a casual guy. He tweets about like the undercard fights and stuff. He's probably gonna be watching like TJ with us, like at the edge of his seat, man. He's a fun guy.
Yeah, I love watching all of his videos. I haven't seen a video with him in it that I haven't really enjoyed. So good on him. I want him around as long as possible. He's super talented.
Oh,
and those people you want around as long as possible. So good on him. Good job losing the 100 whatever pounds. Keep going. He weighs less than me now, and now that's going to be my motivation to get on the
me too,
exercise bike and get some of my weight down, because holy goodness, if that guy can cut that kind of weight and has that sort of drive. I was one of the videos I was watching, he was doing the military, the push-ups on like on the handrails with no support in the middle, and it's like, are you frigging where's the wire? Where's the wire holding you up, dude? Like, and he's just going beast. He's it's just something I can't say I'll ever do something like that, because I don't know, maybe I just don't have that kind of dedication, but I definitely am going to go and try and lose some of this weight now. Maybe look a little bit more credible, as your friend says, talking about fights. If I look,
I made a joke being like, well, I thought they called it the COVID 50, right? People was like, no, it's COVID 15. And I'm like, oh shit.
Whoops. Carry the zero or did the math wrong. Before I get out of here, I remember you said something. Dan Hardy looking for a fight. I know who Dan Hardy's going to fight. I know who's going to fight.
Who's that?
Dean.
Oh. Oh man.
There you go. Book it.
Oh yeah. You guys want to see some MMA drama? That was, and it was really well done. They went back and forth, and then it stopped the way it should be. Two guys explaining their sides and then agree to disagree, man. We could use a lot more of that. You don't have to agree with everybody, and everyone that disagrees doesn't have to be your friggin' enemy, right? So I love that exchange. But yeah, Dan Hardy, one of the best commentators there, obviously crazy passionate, but I mean, give him another fight. Why not, man? It'd be good. He's built up enough of a fan base. He could co-main, put him against Cerrone. There you go. There's another opponent for Cerrone. Him and Dan Hardy at 170. Man. Why not? You
I
know?
remember the one Dan Hardy memory I have was him versus GSP, and GSP bending his joints and ligaments in every which way, and Dan Hardy refusing to tap out and just screaming for GSP to break it, and GSP wouldn't. He let it go, and because he knew he won it by the cards.
You know what? That's a crazy fight if you go back and watch it. And actually, just recently, Dan Hardy and GSP got together via Zoom to talk about it, to break down the entire fight. So if anybody has some time to kill on their hands, which some of us happen to find ourselves with these days, but I would highly recommend doing that. They actually go through it round by round, which I find it really, really interesting because it's one thing to kind of be like, oh, hey, wasn't that fun? But for them to actually kind of watch the fight all the way through and talk about their mindsets and going through everything is pretty crazy. And I really appreciated the insight there. If I have a quick second, one of my favorite Dan Hardy memories is, oh, damn it, I can't share this. Never mind. I was going to ask you to let me share the screen. I have a picture with Dan Hardy from forever ago. I was going to be like, this is my favorite Dan Hardy memory, but I'll do it next time. But yeah, man, I'm excited for the fights. Unfortunately, I'm going to be away, but I'm going to be able to watch them. I'm going to be in Niagara for the weekend. What are your plans to watch the fights? Are you going to watch them from home?
Oh yeah, I'm couching it.
Nice.
I no travel for this guy. I'm a no guy on the restaurants, on the traveling. I'm gonna go out and grab a bite to eat with you soon, but
Yes.
that's gonna be at a place where it's completely outdoors. I already have it planned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a no guy on the traveling right now. So I just like
We're kind of the same way. I'm going with a bubble friend, heading down to Niagara, and it's basically golf and patios.
There you go. That's
We're
it.
not going inside anywhere. Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna pick up golf next year. Maybe you can teach me a few things.
Dude, no. I'm picking up golf. I'm at the Daniel Cormier level of golf. Like, he just started playing. I think I'm probably better than Daniel Cormier is, but like it is. I'm not good.
I don't know
It's
if
a
you
lot
can
of
hit
fun.
the ball as far as Daniel, maybe, but
I don't know. He was been sharing that stuff, the clips of him learning how to play golf, and he barely bends his knees when he swings. It's hilarious. I love it. He looks like Charles Barkley.
I heard
Somehow, after
Charles is actually
15
really
years
good,
of
by
golf
the way.
lessons. Well, it's so funny because he looks like crap when he plays, but he's had like 15 years of lessons. Like, if I had 15 years of lessons, I'd be amazing at golf.
Yeah, maybe. All right, we're getting out of here before we start unraveling into the entire world of sports.
All right,
Thanks
buddy.
for listening, everyone. Thanks, Jordan, again for joining me on this week's episode of the Puncher's Chance podcast. We'll be back next week to break down the Colby Covington, Tyron Woodley fighting card, and hopefully our boy TJ will be celebrating a win with us. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.
Enjoy the
Peace.
fights, everybody. Cheers.
Later.